Hey, math friends. So our learning target today is I can evaluate expressions. So we are going to be dealing with the order of operations again today, but we're going to have to plug in for the variable in our work today. So since elementary school, you've known that a variable is a letter that represents an unknown. So basically it replaces a number. So in this process, wherever we see a variable or a letter, we're going to replace it with the equivalent number value. Okay, so example 1. Evaluate the expressions below using that the x value is -2, the y value is positive 5, and the z value is 10. So we're going to go ahead and substitute in. So I'm going to plug everything in, and then I'm going to drag the signs with me. So it says that the x value is -2. The sign in between is subtract. It says that the y value is 5. The sign in between says add. And it says that the z value is 10. So here's our problem that we're dealing with. -2 minus 5 plus 10. So this looks like a tug-of-war scenario here. So I'm going to go ahead and work left to right. And you can put them all in at once too, actually, if you want. But I think I'll just take them two at a time. So we have 2 players on team negative. We have 5 players on team negative. So everybody showed up on team negative. The result of that is -7. Then, if I haven't used it, drag it down, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add that 10. So I'm going to tug a war again. I'm going to put 7 players on team negative, 10 players on team positive. The resulting sign, of course, would be positive because it's a stronger group. And it has that group, the positive group has 3 extra players. So the result of that is +3. Now, if you struggled with that, that would be a good time to go back, rewind, check it out, see how you do. Okay. Same plan throughout the course of this lesson. Our job is to get the variable out of there, put the number in, and then we're simply just using PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally from that point on. So next example, the x value is -2. The operation in between here is multiplication, so I'm going to use parentheses. I prefer parentheses over the dot, multiplication dot. We're going to multiply that by the y value, and the y value is 5. So we're going to use a triangle there once we start to solve. The sign in between is subtract. And you can see that up here that the z value is 10 to the power of 2. So everything has been replaced now at this point. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to use the order of operations, or PEMDAS. So parentheses first. We do have parentheses, but each of those parentheses just has one number on the inside, so we don't have to worry about that. Exponents are next. So we're going to deal with this exponent. And we know that that exponent tells us how many times to multiply the base. So 10 times 10 is 100. So I'm going to clean up, erase all this stuff down here, so I have some space to write. The sign in front of that 100 is a subtraction sign. And I have this triangle sitting out front. So we have negative on the 2, positive on the 5. The result of that is negative. And 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so cleaning up the rest of this problem, we have a subtraction problem. It is a tug of war. So we're going to go ahead and tug of war this. So we have 10 players on team negative. We have 100 players on team negative. The result of that is that we have 110 players on team negative. Team negative. So there's my answer there. Negative 110 is the result of that. Again, if you're struggling on that, this is a good time to pause the video and give it a shot. Okay. Example 3 is a division problem. We know that all fractions in mathematics class means the operation is to divide. It's just that we have to get everything down to one number in the numerator and likewise in the denominator before we can do that division step here. So be super, super careful about this problem. We're going to substitute a -2 in for the x value. Now, whenever you put a negative base in, or it's given, a negative base to a power, we want to be careful that we use a parenthesis. So that's just kind of a rule of thumb. because otherwise sometimes we get messed up on our sign. So I would recommend that anytime you have a negative base to an exponent, throw a parenthesis around that. After we do that, we're going to add 16. In the denominator, we're going to divide by the y value, which happens to be 5. Okay, so we got to take care of that exponent first. I'm going to erase all this stuff if I can, if the stylus will allow me to do that. And it did. Okay, so we have this exponent here. Here we go, here we go, here we go. What does this say? It says that I'm going to take the -2 and I'm going to multiply it 2 times. So it looks like this. It's a triangle situation. So we have -2 multiplied by -2 is positive 4. So this right here with a negative base is -2 times -2. The triangle suggests that it's positive 4. We're then going to add 16 and then we will divide by 5. So we have some easy math happening here. We don't need to tug of war anything in that numerator. It's simply 20 divided by 5. And we know that 20 divided by 5 is equal to 4. Okay, so that's our learning target today. I can evaluate expressions. We're going to do some more. I see that we're at the 6-minute mark, and that's okay. We're going to practice some more in terms of what happens if there's an absolute value bar. What happens if there's a square root? How does that change some things? You will get an opportunity to try some on your own as we go, but of course at any point you can always pause and try, just like you would be able to do in class. Okay, so we have this absolute value bar, which means the distance from 0. You know it's the first step in the order of operations because it's what's called a grouping symbol, but we have to do all the stuff on the inside first. So we're going to substitute a -2 in the x spot. The sign in between is subtract. We are going to substitute a 5 in the y spot. The sign in between is add. And we are going to substitute a 10 in the z spot. All of that is in the inside of the absolute value sign. And we just did a problem very similar to that on the other page, but it was not in the absolute value bars. So if we tug of war that, we would have 2 players on team negative and 5 players on team negative, which means we have 7 players on team negative. So the first 2 terms there, -2, -5, results in -7. If I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. We tug of war again here. We have 7 players on team negative and we have 10 players on team positive. Clearly team positive is stronger with 3 players. Now, don't forget about the absolute value sign. We have to make a decision now. If we had a number line, this symbol means if here's 0, 1, 2, 3, how far away from 0 is 3? How far away? Well, it's just 3. So no big deal on that problem. It's usually pretty simple when we're dealing with positives, but that is the definition of absolute value. Okay, so we're going to try another absolute value problem. Again, if you are struggling, this is a good time to go back, pause the video, and give it another shot. I'm going to erase all that so I have some space. So same plan here. We have the absolute value symbol. Okay. Now, remember this expression here means multiply. So we're going to take the x out. We're going to put a -2 in. So it's -2 multiplied by the y value is 5. The sign in between is subtract, and the z value is 10 to the 2nd power, all in the absolute value. So my first step in the order of operations, of course, is to do all parentheses. So I have a parenthesis here, but there's nothing to do on the inside. I have a parenthesis there, there's nothing to do on the inside. So I can't really do any of the parentheses first because there's nothing on the inside to simplify. Exponents are next, and we know that this simply means 10 multiplied by 10. And we just solved a problem just like this, which is 100. The sign in front of that is negative. And then I'm going to take the triangle here on the multiplication of those 2 numbers, 2 integers. So the first number is -2. The second number is +5. The result of that would be -10. -10. Okay. So if we tug of war on the inside here, and we put 10 players on team negative, and we put 100 players on team negative, The result of that would be negative 110 inside the absolute value bar. And reminder that that bar means how far away from 0 are we? It means, it doesn't mean, it means distance. It doesn't mean direction. It doesn't matter what direction we're in, just how far. What's the length? How many steps? Your answer should be 110 steps or 110 miles. So that's the absolute value. And remember, it always has to be positive unless it has that opposite sign in out front. So I'm going to erase this if I can get the stylus to work. Okay. And final problem on this screen. What about if we have the square root? Now we've solved a similar problem as this. Inside, we have this x squared. And so when we do that, I'm just going to show my work over here so I have a little bit more space. We have the square root over the entire quantity. That's negative 2 squared. Now remember, I just talked about that if the base is negative and you have an exponent, you really should try to put a parenthesis around it. That's just a good rule of thumb. We're going to then add 16 in the numerator. We will then divide by the y value, which happens to be 5. And at the very end, we're going to take the square root of that if we are able to. So first quantity says I need 2 of that thing. Negative 2 multiplied by negative 2. I just solved this problem, so this is a good practice. So we end up with a negative times a negative is a positive 4. So we have a positive 4. We add 16, and then we divide by 5. So 4 plus 16 is 20, and then we divide by 5, all inside the square root. And we know through division that 20 divided by 5 is 4. So 20 divided by 5 is 4. That's 4, but then we have to take the square root of that. And remember, square root just means if I were to build a square and have the area of 4, what's the side of the square? Well, that would be 2, because that would be a 2 by 2 square. So that's evaluating expressions. So I'm going to take a look at the other 2 slides that I have here. We're already at the 12-minute mark. So I'm going to see what things I maybe want to eliminate. So I think I'm going to skip that page, and we're going to go to the you try section. I'm going to have you try, let's try 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I want you to try all 4 of those rather. I'm going to move this down so you can see what the values are worth when you go to substitute. Maybe if I can grab these, I'll push it up. So I'm going to ask you to, at this point, to pause the video. I want you to give these a fair shot. Now, these problems here are going to require you to have some scratch paper. You definitely need something to write on. So make sure that you give it a good shot. So go ahead and pause that video. Okay, so you should have given that a shot. Let's see how you did. All right, so the C value is negative 2. So we put a negative 2 in, and then we're going to square it. Reminder, if you have a negative base, you should really be using a parenthesis. The sign in between is subtract. The A value is 9. The sign in between is add. The B value is 5. So taking a look at this, exponents mean that we are going to multiply it that many times. So that'd be negative 2 times negative 2, which we've done a few times today. So that's negative times negative is positive 4. So the result of this is positive 4. Sign in between is subtract. Sign in between is add. So let's see how you did so far. Hopefully you have a positive 4 there. If you have a negative 4, make sure that you take a look at the y. All right, we're going to tug of war next. So the next step here would be to tug of war. So we have 4 players on team positive. We don't see a sign here, so it's positive. We have 9 players on team negative. Who's stronger? Negative. How many extra players? 5. So the result of this is 5. Negative 5. If I haven't used it, I drag it down. Now, if I were to tug of war this, we would end up with 0. So 0 would be our answer for that problem. All right, so hopefully you're 1 for 1. And I'm going to erase this stuff here so we have a chance to show our work on the next problem, number 6. Okay, number 6 is a nice A plus B plus C plus D problem. So let's see how you did. So the A value is 9. The B value is 5. The C value is -2, and the D value is 3. Now this is a tug-of-war scenario. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to try to build one giant tug-of-war. Since there's so many positives, I think I'll be okay. So on team positive, I have 9, 5, and 3. On team negative, I have 2. So 9 and 5, so that's 14, 15, 16, 17 players on this side, 2 players on the other side. So the result of that is positive team wins. How many extra players? 15 extra players. Now reminder that the sign here, this symbol here means how far are we from 0? How far away are we from 0? We are 15 units away from 0. So your answer to this problem should be 15. Make sure you take a look at that absolute value. All right, so we're at 15-minute mark. We have 2 problems left for today. We can do this. So let's see how you did. Hopefully you're 2 for 2 or at least 1 for 2. If not, go back and practice, practice, practice. In the numerator here, we have a B value of 5. We're going to add it to the D value. Ooh, that's nice and easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We're going to divide by the C value, which is -2. Oh, I love this problem. Now you could tug of war that if you want, but I don't think it's necessary. Reminder, this means division. That's a division sign. All fractions are division sign. And we are going to triangle that. Divide, 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 divide. First sign is positive. Second sign is negative. So the result of that would be negative. Division, the answer would be -4. Okay, so now one last problem for today. The last problem for today would be that if we take a look at the square root of 8, so we take the square root of 8, square root of A rather, the square root of A would be the square root of 9 because the A value is 9. We are going to divide by the D value. The D value is 3. And if we take a look at that, remember square root means we have a square with the area of 9. What would the side length of that square be? It would be 3. So we would have 3 divided by 3. Nice, easy, positive value there. So 3 divided by 3 is just a nice 1. So that's called the evaluating expression. So just remember that we just take the variable out. The only thing is that if you have a negative base to a power, it's a good rule of thumb is to make sure that we're using these parentheses. But otherwise, it's just PEMDAS. Just a quick reminder that the parentheses, the absolute value, and the square roots are all in first place. So great job today. I hope you have a glorious night. Of course, if you're struggling or you need anything, I'm available to help you. So make sure that you're counting on me for additional help. This is just the instructional piece, but the questions and when you're struggling, it's important that you're asking, okay? Keep it up. You're doing great. You can do this.